Telestai. It is finished. And with that, he bowed his head and he gave up his spirit. Today we celebrate a day on the Christian calendar called Good Friday. This day was anything but good. In fact, it began the night before. It began with a betrayal and an abandonment by one of his closest friends. And then after Jesus was arrested, he was put on trial twice before the religious authorities, and then 3 times before the government authorities. And in the process, he was scourged with a whip. He had a crown of thorns shoved down onto his head. He was mocked with a robe and called a king. He was spit on, he was beaten. And then in front of a crowd standing next to a murderer, the crowd said, "Give us the murderer. Crucify Jesus." And then they marched him out of town and carrying his own cross for a while and then getting some help from a man named Simon. He was led up to a hill called Golgotha, the skull. And on that hill, nails were driven through his hands and his feet into an rugged, horrible instrument of death. And then that cross was lifted up into the air where he hung, suffocating, naked, beaten, bloodied, ashamed, betrayed and abandoned. And at the end of that, his last breath is, "It is finished," tetelestai. But what was finished? What was it that was over? You see, what's incredible about this day in the life of Jesus, the day of his death, is that it's the day where my sin was paid for. That's the day where all of my pain, all of my sorrow, and all of my problems, all of my sin, all of my mess, all of my ugly was paid for on that day. That was the day that God said, "I'm going to buy you back." But the cost is so high. And so you can imagine as they struck Jesus with a whip, something like this, with shards of glass and nails and lead and rocks tied into the leather, with every piece of flesh that was ripped from his body, that was part of the cost. And when they drove a nail that looked something like this through each one of his hands, that was part of the cost. And that cost reminds me of just how much weight my sin carries. It was my sin that he was paying for. It was my fault. But it was his love that put him there. He was paying for me because of his love. And man, there was so much cost. And he was paying for you in the same way. And what this day should make us think of, what this day does for me, is it reminds me of how lightly I take my own sin. How much I dismiss it, I excuse it, I ignore it. And I just enjoy God's grace and ignore the cost. Today is a day where we're forced to reflect on the cost. God the Father gave his Son to be beaten and crucified for you and for me. And so it's a Good Friday, not because the day was good, but because it's finished. And so what I'm going to do is from tonight until Sunday morning, when I get to celebrate the resurrection of my Lord, I'm going to fast. I'm going to take a day to remind myself how much weight my sin actually carries. Every time I feel some hunger, every time I want some food, I'm going to use that opportunity to say it's not all about what's for me, it's what he did for me. Imagine the pain he went through, and in those moments, I'm just simply going to sit, acknowledge my sin, and revel in his love. Would you do that with me? Fasting is a personal thing. I don't want you to feel obligated, but what an incredible way to be reminded of the cost, because it's finished.
What can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. What can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. It's nothing but the blood of Jesus. And I just want to be where you are. And I just want to be near your heart, Lord. 'Cause there is nothing like your love. There is nothing like your love. I just want to be with you. And I just want to be where you are. And I just want to be near your heart. 'Cause there is nothing like your love. 'Cause there is nothing like your love. 'Cause you are holy, 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 holy. Jesus, I love you. Jesus, I love you. Yes, 'cause you are holy, holy. You are holy, 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 holy. Jesus, I love you. Jesus, I love you. And oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. Oh, no other fount I know. It's nothing but the blood of Jesus. It's nothing but the blood. It's nothing but the blood. It's nothing.